All right, welcome to this LEX18 Digital Conversation. I'm Davidson. How much do you know about Kentucky's place on the information highway? Did you know that there is a state agency, Kentucky Wired Infrastructure, that is helping to monitor and make communication systems better and more accessible in the Commonwealth now and into the future? Joining me now is KCNA Executive Director Philip Brown. Welcome, Philip.
Thank you, Nia.
All right, when we think about the internet and the communication systems, that's pretty deep, heady kind of stuff. It's not just a light kind of conversation, is it?
That's right. That's right. And the thing to remember is that every bit of data that you send or receive from any of your devices, your phone, your laptop, your tablet, any computer, it's really taking a journey. And it's going from where you are to the place you're sending, and it's coming to you from some other place. And so part of that journey is a middle-mile broadband network, and that's what Kentucky Wired is going to be. It's going to be a statewide, open-access middle-mile network that's going to provide service to state government agencies, and also, at the end of the day, make last-mile broadband availability, that broadband that every house and business needs. It's going to make it more accessible and hopefully less expensive.
Well, now, is this going to be sort of a company that we would be able to, as individuals, buy into, or is this just building the infrastructure to make life and I guess you can explain even with this graphic, life and usage of this technology easier?
It's not going to be a last-mile broadband provider. Kentucky Wired, as a state government project, is not going to compete with the companies that are out there providing service today. But those companies can come to us and use half of our network to make their networks bigger and better. And so ultimately, the two goals of the project are state government wants to provide broadband to its own state government agencies, and we also want to make sure that we have that critical infrastructure foundation for economic development in all 120 of Kentucky's counties.
Are we behind the curve on this, or are we right along with the other states?
There are unserved households that can't get broadband, which it's important to remember that the definition for broadband changes because it's a shorthand term for high-speed internet.
Right.
And high speed is a subjective term. What's high speed for me might not be high speed for you and what you need. And the definition of broadband has changed over the years. So at any rate, and once you get outside the population centers of our counties, there are unserved households all across Kentucky, even northern Kentucky, Kenton, Boone, Campbell counties, what we would think of as the greater Cincinnati area or Covington. There are 26,000 unserved households in those counties alone. And so we're always going to need to reinvest in these networks to make sure that we have ubiquitous broadband that everyone can access.
So are we talking about laying, because we're seeing a worker right now, are we talking about poles? Are we talking about underground wiring? Or is it a combination of both?
It's a little bit of both. It's mostly poles. 85% of the network is going to be built on existing telephone poles. 15% of it will be buried underground. That underground conduit or installation is going to be mostly in our urban areas, poles across the state where they're available that cut the price of the project. And an important thing to know, we're not installing new poles for our project. Our fiber is going on poles that are already there. Already have communications lines on them, and so we're not intruding upon the roadways any more than is already being done. And
so you're not going to be going in my backyard and digging up my backyard either?
No, no.
Okay.
There are a few places where we've had to ask for permission from some property owners to dig across their property, but in almost all the cases, we're certainly making every effort to put our fiber in existing easements or the public right-of-way so that we can avoid as much distraction or disruption to a private property owner as possible.
Well, you know, we were talking about this yesterday where Windstream declaring reorganization bankruptcy.
Sure.
A lot of people are going to be concerned, thinking, oh my gosh, do I need to find another provider? You know, what's this going to do? Is this going to diminish our already kind of sketchy service? What's going on with that? Can you kind of help people understand?
Well, you know, I think that it's important to realize that broadband, even though it seems to us to come to us like magic, it's not, and there's not fairy dust and happy thoughts that make the internet work. It's people like we just saw climbing that pole. It's people and trucks and equipment, and it takes construction to make the internet work, and that's very expensive. Our project is $300 million of publicly financed bonds. Windstream, AT&T, Spectrum Cable, all these are large companies, and it takes a lot of capital to maintain that business. You know, I think that Windstream is going to come out of their Chapter 11 and and continue to do their work. And there's also a lot of flux inside the broadband market. You know, mergers are somewhat common. And at the end of the day, there still remains, in most places, 2 to 3 or even more broadband providers available to provide service to people who need it. Kentucky Wire is going to help make that better in Kentucky.
But I guess, everyone's defense, we hear Big Brother, we hear government, we hear you're coming into our homes with broadband. Is this Big Brother trying to watch what people are doing, or Big Brother can't really watch this at all?
Not at all, not at all, and you know, certainly not our network as that middle section of the journey for our information. A last mile network, which is what AT&T or Windstream or Spectrum might be providing. That's a local network, and we always use the analogy of the road system. If you or I wanted to take a trip to Atlanta, we might get on Man of War or New Circle Road and head, but eventually we're going to go to the interstate.
Right.
And the interstate down to Atlanta, I-75, that's our middle mile network. And I-75 is going to take a lot more cars, and we're all going to travel to the same place a lot faster than we would if we're driving on New Circle Road, hopefully.
No, hopefully.
And so that's really what a middle mile network is. Our middle mile network is going to take all the internet traffic that runs on our network to 2 points of presence for the internet in Louisville and northern Kentucky. And from there, it actually goes to its destination. And every type of broadband platform, whether it's satellite or the wireless networks that service our phones, or a fiber to the home network, or even the old-fashioned copper wire, everything goes to a middle mile network. And that's why fiber is important, because fiber is the technology that can allow us to take as much traffic as possible in extraordinarily fast speeds.
You were even talking about it in sort of a triangular shape. We were talking about the way in which all of this is brought together. Can you kind of explain that a little bit?
Sure. So Kentucky Wired is going to be a series of what we call rings. There's 6. Ring 1A, as we call it, is Louisville to northern Kentucky to Lexington. And so we're putting 288 fiber strands of backbone on all of our rings. So the triangle is the first one. And we're doing that one first because those internet points of presence, those internet drains, as they're called, are in Louisville and northern Kentucky. Also, the Commonwealth Data Center, which is a part of our Commonwealth Office of Technology, has to be connected before we can start providing service to our state government agencies. It's 646 government agencies, over 84 campuses of the Kentucky Community and Technical College System, all of our state universities, the court system. Yeah. You know, all of them will be connected and get their internet from Kentucky Wired once we have the network turned on. And to do that, we have to have Frankfort connected, and then from there we move east into eastern Kentucky. We'll move from Lexington over to Ashland and down to Pikeville, over to Somerset. That's Ring 1B. Ring 2 is deep eastern Kentucky. Ring 5 is northern Kentucky over to Ashland. Ring 3 is central Kentucky, sort of Louisville over to about Bowling Green, Owensboro down to Glasgow, and then Ring 4 is far west Kentucky.
This is a huge project.
It's 3,200 miles plus of construction.
We've already started. What's your anticipated end date on this? Right.
So at this point, we had to recover for some setbacks in our original schedule. Sure. But at this point, we're scheduled to be complete 100% between July and October of 2020. And as it stands today, the state's contractors are about 5 months ahead of schedule. Oh, wow. So we'll begin lighting sites on the network, certainly in the first 3 or 4 rings, sometime later this year. And keeping our fingers crossed, have some of the rings 100% complete in this calendar year. It's a massive undertaking. It's an ambitious project. It's one with a lot of vision. And I think that 3,000-mile-long construction projects that are ambitious, that have a lot of vision, things don't always go right. I don't think it's fair to expect them to always go right. If they're worth doing, you know, when things get hard and it's worth doing, you don't just stop. You pick yourself up, dust yourself off, figure out the way around, over, straight through the thing that's in the way, right. And then you keep going.
Now, will you be delivering this through modems into people's homes? Is that the way that people can kind of hook into this?
Well, what will happen for our state government agencies, we will run fiber directly into the buildings and connect them in their IT rooms. In fact, one of our sites is very, very close to the station here. Oh. And so with our least access, the part of the half of the network that will help last mile providers, they'll splice into our network and then take care of those connections to the end users on their own.
Gotcha.
So they'll be leasing dark fiber for us that they're lighting up, or we'll be able to provide lit service to them, or we're taking care of the equipment, but it'll all be done at those last mile providers' requests.
If people are interested in, or companies are interested in this and getting partnered with you, can they do that? Or
absolutely.
Right now? Okay.
Absolutely. We have this project is a public-private partnership, or a P3, and we've talked a lot about P3s and their opportunity to help us bring private capital towards public sector projects, and this is one of the first ones in the state. And so as part of that P3, the Commonwealth's private sector partners have a contract to monetize that excess capacity, and then they're going to share that revenue with the state. And so they're fielding inquiries today from companies that are interested in using part of our capacity, and we can certainly at the Kentucky Communications Network Authority can help steer any interested parties to that private sector partner. They're called Open Fiber Kentucky, and help them get connected. Today we have 1,100 miles of fiber deployed. We have another 600 miles ready for our fiber to be installed in the next couple of months.
Wow.
This project is 50% complete, and absolutely it's going to be the tool that closes the digital divide for all of Kentucky.
This is a win-win, isn't it?
It is. It has not been easy, and certainly there are lessons that we can learn for future public-private partnerships. But the governor is committed to finishing this network. We are picking up the pace, and at the end, this is going to be a win and good news for the entire Commonwealth and its economy.
You're very passionate about this, aren't you?
You have to be. It's such a large project that you have to take a long view on it.
Right, right. At the end of the day, we talk about this, but in 20 years, this is going to be sort of obsolete, right?
No, not at all. Not at all. This project will last at least 30 years.
Really?
And there's fiber out in Kentucky today that is 40 and 50 years old that is still functioning just like it was the day it was deployed.
Really?
Now, the equipment that you connect to your network, that does wear out.
Right.
And it needs to be replaced. So we have plans in place every 10 years at least to replace all the equipment in our network to make sure that can go obsolete, and we're going to make sure that doesn't happen. There are some examples of some similar networks in other places that have never refreshed, which is the term, that equipment, and they are experiencing the impact of that older equipment. But
what is it, slower?
It's slow, exactly. The service levels to the end agencies like a university are not as great as they could be, and we want to make sure that the needs of our public universities, for instance, like UK and U of L and Eastern and all the others, Western, I don't want to leave any out,
no,
but I don't want to name them all,
yes.
all of them.
Yes.
We want to make sure that they have the tools they need to become that research university, to provide those cutting edge educational opportunities for our kids. And this network and just having broadband available is critical to job creation, critical to education, telemedicine, which is going to do wonders for improved access to healthcare and lower healthcare costs. All of this requires a robust broadband network. Our Cabinet for Economic Development thinks this is critical to their efforts to ensure that we have a trained workforce, to prevent that brain drain from the rural parts of Kentucky that have many of our counties concerned. We want to give kids the opportunity, as they come through high school and college, not to have to leave their hometown, to have an opportunity to make a living. And we don't really want to make it necessary for them to have to leave and then come back. We want to give them the chance to stay at home and have that job and have that ability to raise a family if they want to stay, right where they grew up.
That's reinvesting in our state.
Absolutely.
Indeed. This is so exciting. Looking forward to seeing how it grows and leaps and bounds in the future.
Stay tuned. We have good news on the way.
Indeed. Thank you so much. And
thank
you so much for watching this LEX18 Digital Conversation. For more digital conversations, log on to lex18.com. Until next time, I'm Dia Davidson.